I'm kind of curious, like on your brand side of things, like what did you stop doing last year that kind of helped instantly free up agent energy, or kind of at least like looking back on previous seasons, if there's like a habit that sticks out to you that you feel like you would definitely do again?
Yeah, I think during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, when you're expecting volume to increase and it's the holiday season, sometimes the wrong strategy as a CX leader is like focusing on the channels where the volume is the most. And then what ends up happening is sometimes the channels that you don't think people are going to necessarily reach out on get maybe neglected more than you originally anticipated. So it's understanding like where to spread out the coverage, where to meet customers exactly where they are for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, instead of just focusing on just where the channel. So if you think your volume's coming through email or phone call, like making sure you have a strategy for literally every channel. When people are at home and it's like after Thanksgiving and they're on their couch, people may reach out through social media, they may reach out through a Facebook Messenger. And so just making sure you have like proper coverage on every single channel is definitely in the past. There are moments where I'm like, oh, we were so focused on like, then we knew the problems were going to be over here that we maybe neglected this a little bit more. And so thinking through the entire strategy for every single channel to make sure everything is covered.
Absolutely. No, I think that's so powerful because especially if you are not using a help desk, or maybe you're using a help desk that doesn't have like everything integrated, if you're just focusing on maybe email or like one you and neglecting like social channels, things like that, you're definitely going to kind of have some upset customers there. So I think that's a really important call out. Great. Well, kind of looking at the planning ahead aspect instead of just hoping for the best, how can we be proactive and be organized? If a brand could only do three things in October to make their November season smoother, what would they be?
I guess from my perspective, just to kind of piggyback on the proactive nature of the conversation is, do whatever you can to like truly unify the customer data inside of the platform that you're using. Like, I think it's going to be really important to arm your agents with as much information as possible before someone reaches out so that they're just prepared to be able to handle those questions or maybe have more of a proactive approach instead of like a reactive, like asking a bunch of questions that maybe the customer would assume that you should already know. So I think making sure that they have that visibility and then also ensuring that kind of like the channel mix is all unified as well, I think is really important, right? You don't want to be filtering through a bunch of different tabs trying to find, when did they talk to me on email versus SMS? If all that can be laid out for the agent, so you know exactly what the conversation has been to date, I think that can really set up your agents to have a successful Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, testing is very important. So, like, if you know that there are promotional offers coming up, like if you can collaborate with your web or site experience teams and test as much as possible, like if there's gift with purchase offers or discount offers, or if we're introducing like a new sales channel, making sure that there's like testing involved and then updating all of your chat flows. Really important. I know automation is a huge thing, but you would want to treat your customers with a little bit more care and consideration and sensitivity. You care about them at all times of the year, right? But during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, there's just an additional sensitivity. People start traveling, things can go wrong with orders very quickly. And so, like, making sure all of your chat flows are updated. I would say to make sure that there's the least amount of friction as possible and it's easy to get in touch with someone if there's a problem. I think there's nothing more frustrating than it's a holiday season, you're placing an order, it's time sensitive, and then you can't get a hold of someone because it's holiday. So making sure that, and then also like testing and just if you have any self-service options, testing them, if you're implementing them, giving yourself at least that like 3 week period before the actual holiday kicks off. And I know that's depends on the brand when they actually launch their Black Friday, Cyber Monday, but like self-service options, making sure they're where they need to be. So if you have like order editing capabilities or account management capabilities, or people or notifications for like subscription orders that could be going off during the Black Friday, Cyber Monday, making sure and testing that those things are still working as they should.
Yeah, and I think on the fulfillment end, likely these things should have been decisions you make back in like July. It's hard on the fulfillment end to make changes quickly, but again, going back to dates, and you want to really build a calendar out for your team. So working with your manufacturer and your 3PL to understand their dates when you need to put in a new inventory order to get it to your 3PL to then have it in stock for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So communicating that calendar and using those dates that you get from the manufacturer and 3PL to build your promotion calendar. And then also using data from last year. So looking at popular SKUs, orders per location, warehouse wise, making sure that you have inventory strategically placed in order to get orders out, as fast as you can.
Yeah, and then from my perspective, I recommend a couple of things. So first would be spotlighting reviews and actual authentic UGC on your site, your PDPs across social channels, because social proof is, what's going to give those new shoppers the confidence to hit that buy button. I'd also recommend launching a holiday gifting quiz, because this is going to help customers highlight best sellers, bundles, high margin product items, going to help reduce that decision fatigue and also lift that AOV at the same time. And then I'd also recommend setting up a post-purchase survey, because this helps capture the buyer intent and segmentation early on, which gives you that roadmap for smarter campaigns well beyond the holiday season.
Definitely think there were some like gold nuggets in there. So thank you all for sharing. What kind of stood out to me, Krista, when you mentioned like July, and I think sometimes we think like, oh, that's so early. Like I don't necessarily like, maybe in life we want to be in the moment, and I think that's great. But when we're planning ahead for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, I do think it's like using the summer to, whether it is like going through your macros, SOPs, making sure everything's up to date, testing workflows, like Domonique, you mentioned, kind of making sure everything is really tight and locked in. So that way you're not scrambling. I think that's absolutely like the name of the game. I did see a question come in on our chat where it was saying thoughts on controlling or reducing the channels for a narrowed down, more direct approach to support. So maybe if you do have a lot of different communication channels, does anybody have like thoughts and opinions about maybe temporarily narrowing that down?
Yeah, we've done that in the past, like when we were overwhelmed with volume in other seasons. I would say that like as much as communication as you can have with the customer, like try to do that. I know that sometimes there are limitations just with team sizes and just like bandwidth. It's just not always possible. But if you are going to be limiting access on channels, make sure that that information is as visible as possible so that customers understand that when they're experiencing friction, and then they reach out to customer experience where they're getting contact. So if they know if the phone hours on the website are different than when they call in and they say, we're in high volume season, no one's there to pick up at this time, like leave us a message, we'll get back to you in 3 days. That can be really frustrating for a customer. So sometimes it happens, just, realistically, but making sure you can give as much information as possible. If you can put it in chat, if you can put it in your email autoresponders, if you can put it on the website, just so that people know like what's the best way to contact you. And then just reevaluating also your coverage plans to make sure if you're pushing volume to one channel, you have the proper resources to make sure that there's people to respond to those channels as well.
Yeah. Like I'm kind of curious, like your thoughts, but it sounds kind of like it can, as long as you're communicating very clearly, like where to go next and making sure customers aren't like left frustrated or hanging. And maybe it does mean like scaling up, seasonally, temporarily, just making sure that all the channels you do have, if that is what your customers are used to, rather than like maybe turning it off and pulling it away, just kind of making sure everybody is staffed up accordingly.
Yeah, and then there's disclaimers, making sure people know where to reach you. So if phone is not available, like make sure you're directing them somewhere else and making it as easy as possible to go to those other channels. Or, if chat is limited, then like making sure that it's as easy as possible. Like, can you set your chat up so that it automatically creates a support ticket for anyone who reaches out? So it goes to email so your team can jump right on it rather than saying chat is closed, like send us an email. So now the customer has to take another additional step to go to their inbox and create the email.
Appreciate that. I also see a question come in for Sarah. Let me make sure I see this right. It says, Sarah, can you explain more about the holiday gifting quiz?
Yeah, I guess what is there specific questions about the quiz about like how it's set up or
Potentially, the question, it just says, can you explain more about the holiday gifting quiz? But maybe just like how that could be leveraged.
yeah, I think it's just like a way to personalize what shoppers are looking for when they have so many SKUs and so many websites that they're looking for, especially in a time where it's super saturated. So it's just really creating that hyper personalization of like what, for example, like Luna Bronze. It's like a tanning website. So it's like asking the color of their skin, the complexion, the are you oily or neutral, those types of questions, which also helps reduce the need for the chat support questions ahead of time too. So yeah, it's really just about personalization.
Think so many people love a good quiz. So definitely, at least for myself. But yeah, awesome. Thank you everyone so much for your input so far. It kind of does take me to this next question of when we are looking ahead, what like inputs or data beyond last year's volume should go into staffing forecasts?
From my side, I mean, there's a lot of areas that we could cover. I think one that comes to mind for me is like a lot of the external factors that are out there, right? Like, are there, going to be carrier delays? Is there anything around like tariffs that might create more inquiries or contact volume? Kind of thinking about like what that volume's going to be, along with the channel mix that you have. We talked a little bit about that, but like if you've launched a new channel like TikTok Shop, like should we be expecting new inbound questions from that new channel if we have like a new D2C partnership that we've developed? Like really thinking about any new potential channels that we're bringing in that we want to make sure are covered. And then also kind of like, you know, setting up like skills-based routing potentially. So if you know that you're going to be having different types of questions that you have a lot of expertise in, making sure that it goes to those specific reps just to make sure that tickets are being resolved in a timely manner and you're creating that positive experience. I don't think those are some pretty key areas to think about.
Yeah, and going off that, I think with fulfillment, obviously warehouse staffing is very important during peak season. You want to make sure you have enough people to handle the volume that's coming in. And so we don't just track inventory forecasts within our warehouses, but we also analyze staffing performance across all locations to ensure that every warehouse is fully ramped by the holidays. So we do use last year's performance and forecast from our customers, but we're also so with that, we're able to gauge staffing forecasts for the coming year and making sure all of our warehouses are ready to go for the volume that's forecasted to come in.
Absolutely. I think, last year's volume is definitely a really strong indicator, but it's also important to kind of keep in mind a holistic context and like what are the promos that are being launched this season, the channels that are available. We touched on that, the SKUs and inventory risks that might be there, carrier SLAs, or even just like how the team is, if there is a way to have like an on-call plan, or if anybody does have like PTO, things like that. We want to kind of look ahead and make sure that we are really covered for this year and not just kind of looking retroactively on that. So appreciate everybody sharing. One of the biggest challenges for CX leaders is knowing like where to allocate agents during a surge. From the data you see across brands, are there any like, maybe 3 auto tag intents that give the clearest staffing signals during BFCM, ones that help leaders forecast volume and decide like where to put coverage first?
Yeah, I think honestly, it really depends on, what's going on in the season, but definitely we focus a lot on urgent like order edit requests that come in, account management. Those are two of the things that we really focus on, like tagging. And so we have essentially this like high volume, like high promotional season playbook that we utilize. And we have a couple of plans within that of like how we're going to pivot depending on volume to make sure we're handling things the most efficiently. And I find that like account management, either people are like, I want to log into my account, manage my subscription, or I want to place a one-time order. I need to delay my subscription. It's going to process in like the next morning and they need someone to like urgently jump in there, or I placed an order, but I used the wrong address and I'm going to be traveling for the holidays. So making sure we're kind of on those and putting the most attention on those types of inquiries, like anything that's going to require an action that is immediate and urgent, and making sure the team is prioritized on that specifically.
Thank you. I also saw a question come in the chat, and it says, during peak season last year, we saw a big uptick in customers reaching out saying they thought they placed orders with us, but it turned out to be scam websites. We've been proactive in trying to get those sites taken down, but the scammers are relentless. We've equipped our CE team with scripts, posted warnings on our websites, and pushed messaging on our official channels, but it still keeps happening. How do you all guide your CE teams in handling these situations? And are there any proactive steps you found effective during peak? Big question.
Yeah, we've definitely seen things like that happen on Liquid IV side as well, like people reaching out, saying like, I got an email from this address and like this says something about my order or that I won something during this particular season. I think training your team ahead of time to spot when something is spam or illegitimate so they know what's the right information to ask for is going to go a long way here so that they can look and see. So typically, if it is like a spammer or a fraudster, the email domain is going to be off. Like those are things you're going to look for in the messaging. There's going to be typos. And so we have our team prepared. The entire team is already like within our high volume strategy and just preparing for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. It's on the list of things we talk to them about of like identifying these kinds of things just when they pop up. So I think just give your team information and knowing what's the right things to ask for. Even setting a macro can be really helpful beforehand so that it's just like if this pops up, like there's a macro that asks for the right information, and then having the managers as well be available during the season just to answer and respond. If we're seeing a lot of friction, we'll also add this within our like chat automation as well so that when people reach out, then we can give them the right information. Like this is how to identify that this is a legitimate product or order, or this is a legitimate, this is from us. So I think it's just like embedding it in legitimacy as many places as possible. And then I don't know if every brand has this, but like we have a satisfaction guarantee and it covers topics like this, like legitimacy and making sure watching out for things like spam. So if you can embed any of that, like through macros, your chat conversations, or just like processes and training the team, that can go a long way as well. So they can identify and then help the customer just feel more confident overall about purchasing with Liquid IV or purchasing with your brand and identifying if something that like they're fine. So a lot of times like, hey, you haven't been charged by us on our end. Like this is a legitimate email, so you should know it should come from this instead of this. And so after we get the information, we can verify, and that usually calms the customer down and creates a lot of peace for them in general and confidence.
Yeah, just to quickly add too, I mean, you could just, I think what Dominique said makes a ton of sense. And just to add on to that, like you could run specific scenarios with your team. So if you want to do like role plays or simulations, so agents can kind of see what a fraudulent example looks like to a non-fraudulent one. I think if you have the ability to do some of those like role plays and get them to kind of like experience that in a safe setting, it can be easier for them to spot that when it actually happens. And then if you are leveraging AI, you can certainly teach your AI agents to spot these types of behaviors, to the nonsensical texts and things that Dominique was mentioning. So just a couple other things to call out there.
Caprina, thank you for that question. I think it's really important, especially with the rise of AI, things like that. These situations unfortunately do happen, but hopefully with these tips, and it all sounds like you're on the right track of making sure it's just purely on your website, it's educating our customers how to catch these things and not fall for scam traps such as that. So definitely think you're on the right path there and appreciate you sharing. And if anybody wants, has any questions, feel free to add it in our Q&A or in the chat, and we're happy to answer as we're kind of navigating this conversation. So thank you. Awesome. Well, it's kind of speaking of AI, I think it's been such a topic this year, especially, and every CX lead is being told to just automate more this year. But what's the reality? I want to kind of, pull the curtain back a little bit and talk about, where should CX teams potentially even draw the line, as in like what should maybe never be automated and what should, like what kind of, how can we leverage AI efficiently?
Yeah, I mean, from our side, it's funny. I went to a trade show a couple months ago, and I was just kind of like blown away by how many AI agent booths were at this trade show. I think there was probably 50. That's probably a conservative number, right? So it's clearly a hot topic. Everyone's thinking about it. Everyone wants to implement it, but we really do feel that you still need to have that human in the loop experience to offer a positive customer experience. I kind of compare it to like a small town neighborhood coffee shop experience where like you go to your local coffee shop, the barista like probably already knows who you are. They're like, say less, I got your order. You don't have to give them much versus going to like a Starbucks in Times Square where you're one of a million people, you feel like one of a million people. And really what it comes down to is like that human element is what creates that positive experience. So anyone thinking that like AI is going to solve all of their problems, I think can potentially set themselves up to fail. You really want to make sure that you're using AI as like a secret weapon. Like, how can AI help deflect a lot of those, low effort tickets, like where's my order or what's my return policy? How can it deflect that so that my agents can focus on some of those more complex issues that have the ability to potentially create a lot of brand loyalty? And so I think that's really important. And also, how can AI support the human agents themselves, right? Especially during Black Friday, the agents are going to be overwhelmed with a lot of support requests, tickets, questions, complaints, and anything that AI can do to make it easier for the human agent to respond, so they're not having to like cipher through a bunch of information to try and make a decision on the fly, can really help make the agent feel less stressed and less burnt out. So you want to use AI as like that secret weapon, but you don't want to use it as like your total strategy. Like that human is always going to be a part of that overall customer experience.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think AI is only as good as the people who are building it or training it. So
Yep.
it's understanding like what are your customers' pitfalls and how do and they interact with the journey. So if you're focusing too much on automation, sometimes then you're putting your customers in a scenario where you're creating more friction for them, where they might need answers or just need the human touch. So I think that, the reality is you can automate again like those easy actionable tasks. So if someone's just like, I would like to cancel my subscription, like I think even as a consumer myself, I would want that to be as easy as possible. I wouldn't have to want to reach out and talk to a person to do that. But if I'm like, I want to exchange it and I'm not sure which option is best for me, that's where I'd want to talk to another human being if I want to walk through certain scenarios. So AI is really good for those easy, repeatable tasks and automating those things. But then where CX teams kind of draw the line, or like when it comes to like personalized experiences, then you need a human to be able to listen to the conversation, to be able to respond, to make sure that there's clarity, alignment to best assist the customer to do what's best for the customer in that moment. And then we're a CPG brand, so we have a product that people are putting in their bodies. Definitely, like people come to us with medical concerns, people come to us understanding, like, am I the right demographic? Should I consume this? And those are the things that you want to be able to have a human there to respond to those types of inquiries. So I definitely agree with all the sentiments that Greg shared about essentially AI is there to basically get the busy work out of the way so that the teams can really focus on those personalized responses and really building the connections with the customers where the customers need it the most.
Yeah, the guardrails are super important, right? Like I think um, a lot of people think I like what you said about how like AI is only as good as the people that build it, because I think a lot of people still think that like, oh, I'm being sold this AI solution. I'm just gonna flip a switch and it's just gonna know everything. And there is a lot of work in the back end to train it, to make sure that it knows when to bring in a human agent. The example about medical advice, right? Like you want to make sure you're training your agents to pass that to a human agent if those types of questions come up. Like you don't want, AI potentially not speaking in the brand voice or saying things out of turn. So yeah, the guardrails and it is incredibly important.
I couldn't agree more with what you've shared. I think automation is powerful, and Dominique, you kind of mentioned it helps to kind of clear out those like gizmos, those basic common questions, but it really isn't enough. And we still want that human touch, especially if it is maybe a more like escalated nature or a high AOV issue, payment failures, things like that. I think it's so important. And that's, thankfully something that we do support. I saw it, David in the chat, who's our AI implementation specialist, and really helping make sure that we provide trained agents to help bridge the gap and kind of bringing AI and human in a harmonious way. On that note, I did see some questions come in. An anonymous attendee asked, how can brands help maximize AI agents during the holiday season?
I think something that comes to mind, just something quick you can do, is making sure your customer service platform is integrated with your 3PL, especially if there's an AI component to that customer service provider. It's really easy for them to then answer those quick, like Wizmo tickets, like you were just saying. If that information is coming from the 3PL, they can automatically answer that and resolve those tickets really quickly. So I think that's like a quick little win that you can do prior to peak.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, it kind of goes back to what I was saying about ensuring that you're like unifying your customer data inside of your customer support platform. Because, not only do you want your agents to understand like your knowledge base and the brand voice, like if there's any additional data about that customer that maybe a human agent might miss, that an AI agent can help share that information, that could be incredibly important. Maybe that's they're in your VIP loyalty tier, or they're a paid member, or they receive different types of benefits. If the AI can access that data along with your knowledge base, that can really help, support your human team to provide the best customer experience possible. So like really ensuring that all of that data is seamlessly integrated into whatever platform you're using.
I saw an added question that I feel like is kind of related, is like, how often should teams be QAing and optimizing their AI? I think kind of what comes to mind is, it's something you want to start earlier so it can be refined through like kind of seeing the results, the answers it's kind of coming in with, and kind of maintaining it pretty regularly. But I'd love to hear your thoughts and insights.
Yeah, internally we review all of this on a weekly basis. So we do look at just in terms of like containment rate, just like in terms of by topics. So understanding exactly like where's knowledge coverage. But we have like a monthly chat improvements meeting, and we literally just talk about like what's going on in analytics, what's going on with customer satisfaction within our chat, and like where are the top things we need to prioritize and improve. So I would recommend in the early phase, I would say at least in the first 6 months, as you're gathering data, like it's very important to at least twice a month to go through and kind of review all of your chat data and your processes and QAing. I would say that I'm a little more, I like to get in the weeds of things in the beginning. So like for sure, it's on a weekly basis. I'm looking at what are the negative CSAT scores, why, what's going on with the chat bot? Are there any hallucinations we should be aware of? Why is this happening? Are there gaps within the knowledge that we can easily solve for? So as you're setting up, definitely staying close to the process, but we at least have that monthly meeting, and then we talk about analytics at a high level every single week just to see like what's going well and what can be improved so we can prioritize, every single month, like what we're going to be working on improving specifically in our chatbot.
Thank you so much. I think that makes so much sense. There was another question that came in, and it asks, what's better to run the promos prior to Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or just head on and battle out with everyone else?
I think that's a tough question because Black Friday, Cyber Monday is getting earlier every year. I think I just got an email from someone saying like our cyber sale is kicking off in 2 weeks. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's already October. So I think if you have staggered offers, then I think it's best to kind of do your promotion a little bit earlier. So that way you kind of have the time for your customers to get engaged with your overall Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I think the one pitfall I would say is that sometimes brands, and I've seen this, is like they have too many offers on Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And it's just confusing for the customer to understand like which one makes the most sense for them, or they are confused actually how the offer works. So they're buying one thing and they think they're getting something else. So I think the more complex the strategy is for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, giving more time for the customer can actually yield good results. If it's just like a simple offer, like just a one code, then I think that there's so many factors that go in the back end of that, but it changes every single year and so that's a really hard question. I think if you're doing it, waiting until Black Friday, you're actually kind of late from what we're seeing in the e-com space.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
think, anything that you can do. I mean, it's hard to avoid discounts now, right? Everyone's discounting. And it is, Black Friday, Cyber Monday is like starting in September, October. I think one thing that you can think about is like, what can you do that is fun and engaging, that's like unique to your brand, or just something that like you don't see competitors or other brands doing. I remember there was a brand a couple years ago that did like the 12 days of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or something along those lines, but like it kept their email subscribers, their text message subscribers like tuned in to each day of like, what is that offer going to be, right? And they may hold out to see what that's going to be versus like going off and finding, another offer out there. So I think anything you can do to kind of create like a gamification of it, is always going to help you stand out during this time.
And, Krista, I did see a question kind of from ShipBop's perspective. Most like, where is my order tickets are solved with clear order by cutoffs and honest delivery promises. What's one action item people can take today to improve the CX post-purchase?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, connecting your customer service is one thing. So automating those answers and making sure you can get those tickets answered quickly. But another thing you can do is integrate with your SMS or email provider. That way you can send updates every step of the way. So when that order is placed, you can let customers know, and you can automate all of this when the warehouse is picking and packing the order, when it's out for delivery, when it's been delivered. Really giving the customer like no chance to wonder what's going on with the order. Um, can you hear me? I just got a thing that said my internet's unstable.
Thankfully, you can hear you fine.
Okay, cool. Just making sure. And then, yeah, that way, again, even if the order's delayed, like things happen, weather is a thing during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, carriers can be delayed. And so even if that is the message you're sending them through that integration, at least you're letting them know before they have a chance to wonder what's going on and have to reach out. I know I always appreciate that communication. So yeah, I think just integrating your tech stack and using it to the best of its ability to over communicate in that post-purchase window when things can typically go wrong or there's a little bit of distrust there, because it's out of their hands.
Very well said. Thank you. I know we have just under 15 minutes left, and I did see a question in the chat. During Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and other peak promotions, how do you handle flash sales when it comes to customers asking for price adjustments? Do you honor them after the fact, or do you take a strict no adjustments approach? What have you found works best for balancing customer experience with protecting revenue? Another powerful question.
Yeah, it definitely is a balance because you have to worry about protecting revenue. What we've done is that we kind of redefine the scope of a VIP customer. So, of course, like our most legacy customers, we always treat them with the most care and consideration. And then I think a big bucket that a lot of people miss is like your first time customers. So if they are like encountering your site for the first time, or maybe sometimes people will sign up for the email list and they won't purchase. They'll just kind of linger. And so they're waiting for that moment to buy. And so if they do just happen to miss a window and they want an adjustment, we'll typically honor that for them. But obviously, this is like a collaboration with your finance team and with your e-com teams on what the best strategy is. But just for us during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, like we don't want to do anything to lose those first-time customers. We want to give them the best experience possible. So we tend to be a little more giving with them. And then we do sometimes have to share like with our customers that like, hey, we can't make this price adjustment, but giving them an another offer sometimes is helpful in a lot of cases and situations. So it's not just saying we can't adjust this and we're really sorry, but also like if we can give you another discount code. So we will collaborate a lot of times with like our e-com teams ahead of time to say, hey, can CX have a specific offer that we can give this person just in case they reach out, because we expect to see an increase of this during this time. And so those are usually some of the things that we have done just to kind of balance customer experience.
No, I appreciate that. Even that question, I think, was, just very well put, because that is the name of the game. As like CX leaders in the space, of course, we want to do everything we can to make it right with our customers. But of course, we have to also keep revenue in mind and making sure that we're kind of doing what's best for the business at the same time. So I think finding that balance, it's definitely a lot of like over communication and making sure like, clarifying that even ahead of time, like where can we kind of give a little, make exceptions in certain cases. And I think that can go a long way in the holiday season when emotions can be high, and customers will really, I think, be so grateful if there are opportunities to kind of like help them feel like, okay, you know what, like we are looking out for you too. So yeah, thank you so much.
And I think it also, just real quick, like not to repeat myself, but it does go back to like understanding the customer data of that customer too. Like maybe the response is different if it's a new time customer versus like a really high lifetime value customer, right? And if you can give your agents that type of information, you can kind of prepare for different ways that you can respond to those requests as they come in. So at the end of the day, you're delighting the end customer.
100%. So yeah, thank you so much. And please, if there are more questions, feel free to keep dropping them in the Q&A. This has been really great. To kind of like bring things full circle a bit. Earlier, we talked about pitfalls, like what not to do. But now I'd love to kind of, open with your opinion in terms of like a short piece of advice or lessons learned to CX leaders. If you could give them like maybe one sticky note reminder for like how to survive the holiday rush without burning out their teams, what would it say?
I guess I'll go first. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just say it really comes down to the people, right? So protect your people and they'll protect your customers. So, again, there's a lot that you can do with automation and AI, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of humans behind the scenes that are carrying the load. So, really focusing on not burning them out and creating, a great human connection with your customers, and again, using AI as like a strategy behind that. So yeah, just like treating your people well, making sure that they're happy, and if they are, they're going to take care of your customers.
Yeah, I think there's two things. One, again, the calendar, making sure you're aware of your cutoff dates when that comes to getting inventory to your warehouse, but also cutoff dates for your customers to place orders by, and really ensuring that you can actually deliver on that shipping promise and delivery time. But communicating that calendar with your internal team so you set them up for success. Because again, if you can't deliver on those shipping time and promises, then you're going to get a lot of customer tickets that your team will have to handle. So having that calendar and communicating it both internally and externally, and then also connecting your tech stack. Like look at the tools you're currently using already and where can you integrate them, just to automate, again, like the post-purchase notifications, really like delight those new customers with a good experience and then retain the customers that you already have. So connecting those dots wherever you can.
Yeah, I would say that you cannot over prepare your team. So as much information as possible about the promotion, again, just like the shipping and fulfillment experience, you can expect any complexities, and working really to reduce that friction. I think it's CX leaders at Liquid IV, we really are thinking about like what issues do we think customers are going to encounter, and trying to build processes ahead of time so our team isn't hit with the influx of that. And so a theme I'm hearing a lot is just like we're all saying disclaimers, giving the customer information is reducing those tickets long term. And that's what we're hoping to do. And then I think also too that, there's a difference in operating from like that high volume, that peak season versus when you're operating just normally. And so we like to give our team the time to transition into that way of thinking, because otherwise, like when the volume's coming in and there's different issues, it might be a little hard for some agents to adjust to understanding like what does do what's best for the customer mean. So we like to actually give them those scenarios of like, this is how you would identify this, and these are like the options of things that you can do to take care of this customer, that we want you to make sure that the experience is easy for the customer as much as possible and reducing that friction. And then also staying close to your team is really important. So you don't just kind of like set it and forget it and then you go through the holiday season, but like my team works and like gives updates of like, what are we seeing in the inbox? These are the major issues. Like, this is how we recommend you handle it. And we're doing that on a day-by-day basis during those peak seasons so that the agents are feeling informed. And even just sometimes having check-in calls can go a long way to be like, how's everyone feeling? What are we seeing? What's going on? And then I think just for managers, I would say have a pivot strategy as well. Sometimes what you plan for is not exactly what's working. So make sure you have a plan B, just in case you have to pivot, and make sure the team is aware ahead of time of like what plan B looks like. So it doesn't feel like they're kind of coming in for the day and they don't know what to expect. You know, they're getting a lot of tickets and they were told to do one thing and now they've got to do something else. So staying close, building a plan, being as proactive as possible and reducing that friction, but also like giving the team time to adjust to that different way of working can go a long way.
No, very well said. I think knowledge is power. And the more that, we can communicate and be transparent with our customers, like adding notes and reminders, anything like that on the website, but also with our teams. I think that's such an important part. And I think that's what made or continues to make like TalentPop and Liquid IV's partnership so powerful in a way, is that close-knit communication with the team and making sure they're kept in the loop, that they're, being trained accordingly. I know some brands like to do surprise launches, and that is fun, but you also want to make sure as much as you can prepare your team with those common questions, so that they're not left in the dark when, customers might be reaching out with questions and clarity. So I think that's really important, and I appreciate what everyone has shared. Amazing. I saw a question in the chat come in. It said, is there anything you do specifically with your teams to help keep the energy up or uplift them during this time? BFCM can be a time where customers can be more demanding than usual or short-tempered, volume is high, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we do. I think mainly like honoring that it's a holiday season. We're very flexible in terms of our scheduling. That's like one of the ways we reward our team. And so like we do have all hands on deck on like Black Friday, Cyber Monday season, but also we want to encourage people that like you have lives outside of just this of work. So like making sure that's like we're preparing appropriately ahead of time so people can still like, sometimes we'll have people work like 4-hour schedules on Black Friday, Cyber Monday as well. So we're really utilizing our tech stack and our team and staggering coverage as much as possible to give people time back. Also rewarding team members. Like we've definitely done like this was a really tough season. Everyone's worked really hard. Like we want to give you a day back to yourself for the holiday season. We've done like, just like after, we'll like end of day, like holiday, and we'll like send things to the team members or like, hey, we'll like reimburse you and like feel free to buy, and we'll just make a gingerbread house together just as a way to like celebrate the end of the day and kind of just like, because everyone was working really hard. So I think it's like staying in the fight with them, knowing that like we're going to get through it. We've all prepared together, and then also rewarding them goes a long way. I'm a big believer in giving people time back if you can. People really just want to like enjoy their time and be able to spend time with their families, or even if just you want to spend time with yourself. So I think that's a way that we kind of reward our team internally. And then compensation never hurts as well if you're paying people working holidays. So if you can, that always goes a long way, like a bonus or even like double time for working on those really crucial days with the team.
No, absolutely. I think so perfectly said. We talk about balancing that human aspect with AI, but then, that clearly shines the light on like celebrating those humans who are bringing the empathy and care. I think, Greg, you even mentioned like when the team feels supported, that's going to show with the customer experience as well. So Domonique, I think those were fantastic ideas and ways to just really celebrate them and make sure that they feel that support back is so important. But amazing, thank you all for these closing reminders. The big theme is clear. Black Friday, Cyber Monday isn't just about managing tickets. It's about preparing early, protecting your team's energy, and creating a smoother experience for your customers. I definitely heard that in many ways throughout. At TalentPop, we've seen how much of a difference flexible CX coverage and smart prep can make. So no team has to go through the holiday season stretched to breaking. I think that can definitely be avoided with the tips that we've shared today. So to help brands prepare their CX coverage better, we've actually created a lightweight BFCM capacity calculator. It's a simple tool you can use to estimate the hour by hour coverage needs, and we'll be sharing that with you all in the email after this. So you can plug in your own data and see where the gaps are, plan ahead with confidence. So you can expect that in the email along with the panel replay and the community invitation link, which you can probably see in the chat as well. So if you'd like any help putting any of this into action, whether it's refreshing macros, updating your help center, or adding surge staffing, just think of TalentPop as your extra hands this season. Everything with TalentPop is month to month, so you can just like scale up and down as needed. But really, truly a big thank you to our panelists, Liquid IV, Kustomer, ShipBop, and Okendo. Thank you for sharing your insights. This is definitely the dream team. If you don't work with these individuals already, absolutely reach out and connect with them. They will get you supported in the way that you need. And to all of you joining us today, really appreciate it. Before you go, don't forget to scan the QR code wherever it is on the screen right now. On the slide here for the partner giveaway. They're so generous to offer some incredible items here. And even if you don't win, the form also gives you the option to request a free CX audit from TalentPop. We'll dig into your help desk and highlight ways to reduce ticket volume, boost efficiency, and drive more revenue. So again, thank you so much. I hope you all have a great day and good luck this BFCM season.
Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you so much. Take care. Make sure everyone can see this.